Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Design and Deliver. Virtual presenters are made, not born. That's what I believe. Let's face it, virtual presenting isn't easy. Many of you will be frustrated by the numerous challenges and the limitations of virtual presenting. But the fact is that there is over, I think 164 now, 164 participants on this webinar. That suggests to me, at least, there is a considerable interest in virtual presenting. So look, you're in the right place. My name is Jeremy Cassell, and I run, surprisingly, Jeremy Cassell Coaching. We focus on working with leaders and managers to improve their confidence and competence with both in-person or face-to-face presenting, and of course now virtual presenting. So I used to work a long time ago now, but those of you who work in corporates, I used to work for L'Oreal and Pepsi. I was a teacher originally, in fact, but I've been doing this sort of thing for about 20 years. Not this sort of thing, actually. I meant presenting, coaching and training. So I'm also a keynote and I write business books. Outside of work, one of my passions is sport. So the other host, I'm delighted to say, is Emma Lewis from Emperor. So Emma, why don't you say hi to your raving fans?
My name's Emma. I work for Emperor. I'm part of their relatively new dedicated presentations division that was set up nearly 2 years ago now. Before that, I worked for 16 years at IBM in their corporate communications department. And I've always been a fan of presentations and PowerPoint. So I went from client side to agency side about 5 years ago. Don't top up that because you'll get an idea of my age. But outside of work, I love listening to live music, and I've been very grateful for my garden these past couple of months.
I should think so. And today we have a special guest. His name is Merv Wyeth. Now, he is the power behind the throne. He is in control of the Mentimeter mothership. So a little bit about Merv. Following a 25-year stretch with Sussex Police, Merv now specializes in designing high-value meetings. He uses Mentimeter presentation software to reinvent webinars, maximizing audience participation and harnessing collective wisdom. He is indeed the Menti Ninja. So look, we're really excited that so many of you are with us today. We're now up to 178, so we might even get to 200. You signed up for an hour. Please stay the distance. This is an immersive webinar that allows you to experience firsthand how to deliver a powerful and engaging virtual presentation. So let's get straight into it. If you haven't already done so, you need to grab your phone now. Put in menti.com and enter this code, 825848. So first of all, quick question to you. We need you to engage here and give us this information. What is your job title? What is your job title? So just put that in and we'll see who is here.
So Jeremy, just to let you know, we got fantastic participation. We got 180 on the call and 111 and counting. And there's even a little box for comments that people might want to use. But
perfect, thanks, Merv.
Fantastic.
So who have we got? We've got, I can't see the small writing, but the word cloud suggests to me there's quite a few directors there, quite a few account managers, sales managers, director of sales. You're still putting who you are in there, CEOs, managing partners, managers. So there's a whole host of different types of people there. So thank you for doing that. Second job that we'd ask you to do is fill in this question. What is your job title? Sorry, you've done that already. What sector are you from? Easy enough for me to say. What sector or industry do you work in? So just tell us where you're from. Oh, retail.
Oh, that's a big.
Taking a big leap into this. Oh, hospitality wants to get in there. This is like a horse race.
Yes.
Telecoms, distribution, hospitality is looming large. Legal services, chemical distribution, that will be Univar. Welcome to all my Univar friends. Legal, I've got a lot of my work is with law firms, so it's good to see a lot of people from legal here. Professional services, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, distribution, quite a few agencies. So we've got a number of agencies there, Spectra included. I think there's 34 people signed up from Spectra. So that's great. Thank you. So we've got lots of different industries, which suggests lots of people are interested in how to get better at virtual presenting. So the people who are here are a combination of Jeremy Cassell coaching clients, contacts, Emperor clients and contacts, people from LinkedIn, from SMEs, corporates. I think my mother's on the line, which is marvelous. We've got different levels of seniority, experience, and expertise around. So the final question we've got for you in this one is we just want to get a sense of the extent to which you're already presenting virtually. So have you ever delivered a virtual presentation? That's a yes or a no. Have you ever delivered a virtual presentation?
Okay.
So that's a simple yes or no. And this is going to start populating, we hope. You're okay. So yes is winning at the moment. At the moment, 72% of us have already delivered a virtual presentation. So it looks like about 70-30, 70-30. 70% of you have already delivered a virtual presentation, which is great news. So those of you who, you may feel you're expert or you're still learning, but you will be able to take some specific things from this, practical tips that you can start utilizing immediately. If you have never presented virtually, but you're likely to be, because otherwise why would you be on this call, this webinar, should I say, that's for 3 out of 10 or so. This will give you some foundational elements that means that you can start presenting as soon as you want to. So look, before COVID-19, the reality is that only around about 7% of us or so were working from home. Now, if you're a business professional and you're fortunate enough to still have a job, you're likely to be working from home and you could well be called on to present virtually. We're in the middle of I think, a revolution here in agile and flexible working. Lots of us are jumping on video conferences every day. Before lockdown, I thought Zoom was a rocket-shaped lolly, but clearly it's not. So we're in the middle of a revolution, and this means that virtual presentations are here to stay. So this is why we've launched this partnership between Jeremy Cassell Coaching and Emperor. We've done it because Emperor can cover off the design and I can cover off the delivery of virtual presentations and how to do this together really effectively. So when I was writing an article for LinkedIn recently, I was doing some research and I came across a Citrix poll from 2018. And this poll asked professionals, what engages you in a virtual presentation? And there were four things that came up. 38% of people said interesting and relevant content. 32% said a passionate, high-energy speaker. 15% said interaction with the presenter or attendees, and 15% said visual slides. So look, good news. We are going to give you what you want. We will cover all four of these today. This is going to be our agenda. So based on the fact that this is our agenda, again, grab your phone, and on the basis we're going to be covering content, how to be interactive and engaging, how to use vibrant visuals, and how to deliver passionately. What do you want from this 1 hour session? So just complete that, please. So some people are saying how to engage your audience virtually. Yep, absolutely. Some of you are saying ideas to keep the audience engaged. So a lot of you are talking about that. Top tips on structure and delivery.
I like the one reaction from the audience. I like to feel the reaction from the audience.
Yes,
yeah.
Good. A lot of people are talking about engagement, and you'll be the judge of this, whether you feel this is engaging or not, as a result of attending. What else have we got? Learning tips and tools for effective virtual presentations. A clearer direction how to be effective virtually. That assumes you haven't got that at the moment. And of course, this is we're all learning this in the moment, really. So you'll probably be doing some things right, but there are certain things you can do differently. So great, we've got a good sense of what you want from this session. And my sense of it is that a lot of you are talking about engagement, and this will be very, very engaging, we hope. So a couple of just things on logistics. We'll go for an hour. So we'll stop as close as we can do to 11. And I suspect some of you will be, off and onto other calls at that point. So we'll finish at 11. we will take at least one question after each of the 3 sections. We won't do that after our Merv's section, because we'll probably get into the weeds on the technical stuff. He's happy to take questions afterwards. So, and we will send you the slides afterwards. And of course, this presentation is being recorded. And if you want a recording of it, we can send that to you. One final thing, in an ideal world, to get an optimum learning experience, you need to have a side-by-side view. So you should have the slides on the left-hand side, and you should be seeing me, hopefully, on the right-hand side. So if you're not seeing that, then you need to go up at the top view options and go to sidebar, side by side, and then just pull the middle bit across so you can get that. So we will inevitably have different learning styles today. Some of you will just want the top tips. There's going to be plenty of content. Some of you want to engage and interact, and of course we're going to be doing that. And there'll be some of you who are interested in how we can help individuals and organizations, and we're here to help. So we'll tell you more about that towards the end of the presentation. And of course, you may just be here because you want to get out preparing lunch. If that's the case, you can sit back, relax, and someone else will be making the egg and cress sandwiches. So 38% of people responded to the poll about content, saying that they wanted interesting and relevant content. Merv, I'm seeing you at the moment. Are the audience seeing me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, that's perfect. Just want to check in with that. It's live, everybody. And like anything else, things can happen that we're not sure about. So let's focus on content. Since lockdown, have you ever got bored? Have you ever got distracted? Have you even ever got confused during a virtual presentation? I suspect you have. I certainly have. So let's go on to menti.com and ask you a question there. Has that ever happened to you? So be honest about this. Have you ever got bored, distracted, or confused during a virtual presentation since lockdown?
Jeremy, because some people joined a bit later, we're having on the chat that they want to know about menti.com. So I think we just reiterate that what people are doing is on their phone, you go to menti.com and you will be asked for a code, which is at the top of that slide, 825848. And then you can interact with us and answer the questions as we go through.
Thank you so much, Emma. I appreciate that, because we've got up to 184, so there'll be at least 15 or 20 who haven't got that. So menti.com, 8248.
5848. It's like a telephone poll.
Yeah, exactly. So look, let's have a look at this. Unsurprisingly, 6% are the sort of people who don't get that. Blimey, you must have some great presenters in your organizations, or you're only going on for like 5 or 10 minutes. But the majority, 95% of people have got distracted, confused during a virtual presentation. And I asked that question in LinkedIn recently. Why is that? Well, there's a whole lot of different reasons for that. But one of the reasons is the content. There's too much information. It's not audience focused, and it's delivered in a really boring way using, bullet pointed slides. So the result, of course, is boredom, confusion, cognitive overload even. And here's the issue. Confused people don't buy. Confused people don't get motivated. So I've got 3 ideas for you. The first one is a very simple one. Be audience centric rather than presenter centric. So many presentations I see, it's all about, look at me, aren't I wonderful? Aren't I fantastic? But no, get audience centric. Ask yourself, what do they want from this subject matter? How motivated are they to learn? What information do they need beforehand? What level of knowledge have they already got about this? So think audience first. The second thing is reduce content. There is almost always too much content in the presentations that I see. So reduce content. Here is the aphorism: less is more. So what do I mean by this? Well, in 1956, a chap called George Miller wrote a paper called the 7 ± 2 paper. And what he postulated in this is that in a short period of time, in a virtual presentation, 10, 15, 20 minutes is a short period of time, people can't take in more than 5 to 9 key points, 7 ± 2. So if you have 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 or more key messages, they will get lost and people will get confused. Now, what can you do about this? My suggestion is this: think about the power of 3. Can you reduce your messages to 3 key points? The power of 3 is that 3 is a magical number. It's used in sales. It's used in marketing Just think about the things that are on the screen now. You know, you probably got annoyed. I usually get annoyed when I'm on the train, and when you see it, hear it, see it, say it, sorted. Of course, the government have used it in slogans: stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. You've heard it with L'Oreal. I used to work for L'Oreal. You know, I'm worth it, you're worth it. I think we're all worth it. We've got it, L'Oreal. You know, we haven't had that Mars advert on TV for 13 years. But if I said to you, a Mars a day helps you, you're all saying it in your heads, aren't you? So this is because of the power of 3. It's a magical number, and it's a way of reducing content so that you just focus on the key messages. When Tom Bird and I, who write all the books with, when we created Brilliant Selling back in 2009, we did a lot of research and we came up with the C-cube model of influencing, which is confidence, credibility, connection. Again, using the power of 3. So if you've got a 10, 15, 20-minute presentation, can you just encapsulate your subjects into 3? It's okay to repeat them as well. Think about location, 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 or Tony Blair in 1997, education, education, education. And the final thing you can do here is make the audience curious. Think about what state you want the audience to be in. A state is a combination of our thoughts, our emotions, our physiology. And if you think about it, what we need to do is to get the audience into a curious state. How do we do that? I've got 3 ideas for you, surprisingly. The first one is this: use a spike. A spike is a sentence or a series of sentences that gets to the heart of your presentation that you use just at the beginning of when you speak. So here are some examples of some spikes. 3 examples here. Someone once said, 50% of the world's population have neither made nor received a phone call. That was a presenter who was looking for investment into a mobile telecoms company. Now imagine that as a spike. Think about it. If you're in the audience there, you'd be thinking, my God, you'd have thought there'd be more than 50% of the world's population have got neither made nor received a phone call. But actually, it opens up the whole market, so you're more likely to pay attention. I was working with an organization called Sodexo. I think we've got 6 or 7 from Sodexo. So hi, Sodexo. And I was working with one of their top leaders, and he was creating a presentation on sustainability. And when he understood the power of the spike, he started with, there are 70 harvests left in the world. And those of you who are paying attention, how did I start my presentation today? For those of you here right at the start, I said, presenters are made, not born. Why did I do that? Because lots of people think the exact opposite. The presenters are born, not made. I don't believe that's true. I believe it's a learnable skill. So that's spike. The second thing is, can you produce from somewhere a star? And a star is a mnemonic for something they'll always remember. I've been working with a fantastic new managing partner from a top professional service firm, and he wanted to relay something of his youth and his time in the when he was in his 20s, when he was working in Soho, and he talked about being almost beaten up by mad Frankie Fraser. Now, I said to him when he wanted to say that, people will remember his presentation partly because of that. So that's an example of a star. At a conference 2 years ago in Warsaw, I remember a presenter talking about creativity who spent a whole hour with no notes and no slides and just created a model gradually using an old-fashioned overhead projector. So the third thing I want to emphasize is what I've just said there, stories. I've just given you 2 stories. We need to have stories in our presentations. Tell a story about yourself, the market, a client, or a metaphor. Why? Because people love stories, don't they? Don't you? A good narrative will tap into the emotions and will be much more powerful than, facts and figures and evidence. So, quick summary. If you want to create relevant content, be audience-centric, reduce content, and make the audience curious.
Perfect. We're going to take a question or 2. If anyone has any, they'd like to put it in the chat. Then we can take the question for Jeremy on that section anytime. Do we have any questions? I think you've covered it so perfectly, Jeremy. Well, there's no questions.
I don't know about that, but look, we'll encourage questions. If you keep on putting questions into the chat, and if you don't get your questions answered, then we'll answer them afterwards. So look,
here we go. We have had one. Yeah. Christine says, what are the characteristics of a good story?
a beginning, a middle, and an end in simple terms. You can tell a story in just a few seconds, or you can tell it obviously over 20 minutes or so. It depends on the nature of what you're trying to do. I think some of the characteristics are, make sure it's something that's either happened to you or you know about well. Make sure you use a connection voice pattern when you're telling it, and make sure it's linked to a specific solution at the end. So link it back into why you've told it, and tell them the why of telling the story.
Yeah, that's a good one. I also like in Apple, when they released the first iPod, Jeremy,
yes,
they made a story out of that. Instead of giving the dimensions and the storage, they just said it fits in your pocket and it holds 120 songs. And it just translated it into a story that's relatable to everybody.
Perfect. Well, look, I'm looking on time. One of the characteristics of a story is to make sure you keep it to a minimum. So look, there are so many potential distractions when you present. I mean, come on, who hasn't messaged, shopped, browsed when you're in the audience? Hopefully none of you have been doing that today. So look, audience begin to lose attention after around about 5 or 10 minutes. There's been some work done on this, actually. Lloyds Bank did a study about 10 years ago when they identified that in 2000, we had an attention span of 12 minutes. In 2010, it had been reduced to just 5 minutes. What that tells us in virtually is that we have to engage all the time. So we've got a mantra for you: engage, engage, engage. One way of engaging is through using engagement software. So Emma is now going to ask a few questions of Merv so that you can understand a little bit more about Mentimeter. Emma.
Thank you. Hi, Merv. Thank you very, very much for supporting Jeremy and I today. And I don't think many people have heard of Mentimeter, so can you tell us what it is?
Yes, I'd certainly love to. I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat that lead into this area. So I think we were going to stop sharing the screen, weren't we? So that people could see us.
Sure.
I'll do a poll, but again, people can see me as we talk. So Mentimeter, as you've seen, is interactive presentation software designed to engage the audience. It works within the browser alongside PowerPoint, but you can then upload your PowerPoint slides, or you can use a PowerPoint plugin to bring the two things closer together. And as a speaker, what you need is a Wi-Fi connection, an audience who's prepared to interact with you rather than just perhaps spending other time on their phones, and a little bit of imagination and know-how. And I see Mentimeter as it's a powerful antidote to death by PowerPoint syndrome. The software was created by a guy called Johnny Wallstrom. It was created in a hack in 2014. And Johnny is now the CEO and entrepreneur and has done a presentation for me about listening leading. And the adoption in those 6 years has really, really taken off. So today, across the world, there's 45,000 business customers. So really, really significant. And what I wanted to do, just in response to this question, you'd think we planned this, but is to ask you one more Mentimeter question. So if we move forward, so this is the typical slide deck, and it's quite simply this: have you used Mentimeter in a virtual presentation? Now, I really don't know what to expect here, so I'll be learning at the same rate as yourself. What you can also see as questions come in, there's a little box for you to comment. We can see the number of people that have sent in their questions. And then there's all sorts of other little controls that we could use to demonstrate how it works. We'll leave that for now. But what we've got is, 11% yeses, 89% no's. So that I think is a reasonable knowledge. So let me just stop the sharing, and I'll take another question, Emma.
Okay, so what's your experience of Mentimeter? How did you get involved?
Yeah, I first used it at a conference in June of 2017. It was a project management conference. And to be honest, back then I realized, as I look back, that I was flying by the seat of my pants. But even so, I could see the impact of that kind of in-moment interaction, as opposed to what was often happening at conferences, was that you'd wait to that Q&A section at the end, and then someone would rush around the audience with a microphone, putting it into someone who'd probably already asked the question before the microphone came. So it was all a bit awkward, to be honest. And since then, I've used Mentimeter on over 100 events, both face-to-face and online. And then a couple of years ago, I shifted my focus to webinars. And since lockdown, I've run 20 webinars using Mentimeter. And one of my favorites series of webinars was a series of preparing for projects in a post-pandemic world. And if you can imagine on that one, we had 8 different speakers from around the world, experts in their field. And the numbers, which I think speak for themselves, we had 2,300 attendees, all told. And what we call Mentimeter voices, we had 1,080 of those, and 10,000 individual responses, whether to open or close questions. So in terms of the level of interaction with the audience, it was incredible. So a long answer to my experience, but it's developed over time.
And what would you, if you could summarize the key benefits for both the presenter and the audience, what do you think it is?
Well, I really kind of get this down to 3, Jeremy's power of 3, if you like. So 1, listening leaders get heard. So Stephen Covey said, seek first to understand and then to be understood. So if the goal of your presentation is to persuade, instruct, or arouse your audience, then you're far more likely to achieve that goal if you listen carefully to what the audience has to say. So that's listening leaders who get heard. Secondly, I think audiences want to be entertained. And as a member of an audience, I'm looking for the speaker there to really grip me with what they're saying. And to do that, they need bags of variety and some sort of what I'd call an interruption every 5 minutes or so. It can be planned or unplanned. And a great way to do this, for example, would be to use a Mentimeter quiz in which you can show a leaderboard and at the end some kind of online prize giving. So that's the second one, audience to be entertained. And then finally, I would say that it's the live results. So they're available in the moment, but equally afterwards, the speaker and the participant can download the results, can go through that feedback and follow up on any new insights. So, and the benefits are far, far too numerous to mention, really. And I've neither got time, and Jeremy probably wouldn't permit it anyway. But if you want to know more, then I love talking about Mentimeter.
Well, actually, Merv, we're having a few questions come through on chat, so I think now's a good time to say to people that we will be sending through the Mentimeter results. Plus, any questions that we don't get to answer, we will answer within the follow-up email. So
that's great. Yeah, brilliant.
Great. So look, we've covered 2 key areas now: content and engagement. And of course, it's easy to be let down by your slides. So Emma Lewis now from Emperor will tell you how to design and deliver exceptional PowerPoint presentations. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you. So we can look at performance, we can look at interaction. How do we bring everything to life with vibrant visuals? So this is even more important when you're presenting online, because you don't have that ability to project your energy that you would do if you were face to face or on a stage with your audience. You could be absolutely nailing your online performance, but you still can end up only being a fraction of the screen and compared to your visuals. So it's vital not to allow your visuals to let you down. They need to reflect and add to your vibrancy online. So if we think about PowerPoint, it's installed on more than 1 billion devices worldwide. It's the most ubiquitous presentation tool, and each of us on this call today will have had our experiences with PowerPoint, both good and sometimes bad. I think the problem is that it's underused a lot of the time. People don't understand its capability as a design tool. And the most skilled of presenters, they can be let down if all of a sudden their visuals are either dull, dreary, or quite often they can be, the more common problem is that they become overcomplicated. We can all get stuck in a rut of thinking, oh, I've got to create a PowerPoint. What do I need to do? I need a title slide. I need to put these bullets. I need to insert a graph. And so it repeats. And yet there's a lot more that you can do with PowerPoint. Hopefully today we've already, through this stage of the presentation, given you a glimpse into how you can really bring your slides to life. Apart from the Mentimeter poll, everything today has been produced within PowerPoint. This 10-minute session is going to focus on how you can really unlock the potential there is in PowerPoint. So if we look at actually the dictionary definition of what is a visual aid, it's an item of illustrative matter, such as film, slide, or model, designed to supplement spoken information so it can be understood more easily. Now, the key word from here for me is supplement. It should be a supplement to you, the presenter. You are the presenter, not the slides. It shouldn't be your script. You shouldn't have to rely upon the slides to tell you what you need to do. And it shouldn't also be a completely standalone piece. Yes, your audience should understand it, but it shouldn't explain everything without having your performance adding to the messages that you're trying to say. It's there, the slides are there to drive home the key messages that you're saying and help them resonate with the audience. So we have, on a daily basis, this is a scary thought, around 50 million PowerPoint presentations are given daily. And I'm sure right at this stage, during lockdown, that's gone up even more. And the point that I want to make here is about investment from a couple of different viewpoints. So if we look at companies and how much they invest in their logos, in their brandings, colour palettes, they invest in really nailing their digital communications and nailing their print communications. And then they invest very little, a lot of the time that we see, in their PowerPoint template, or they allow multiple users across the organisation with different skill levels to produce PowerPoint on a daily basis, and what you end up is with an inconsistency of your brand and the representation of your company not always being in the ideal format. So we want to show you really today, or to show you, if proof is in the pudding in what we're putting on the screen hopefully, is that you can use all sorts of elements that fit within your branding guidelines, but just push the boundaries a little bit and add some visual elements that bring everything to life a bit more. The other investment is you guys. So we have put together a webinar today, and we have nearly 200 participants. So that is 200 man or woman hours of your investment in hearing what we have got to say. And so if we've put all of our time and our investment into putting the webinar together, then we should also look at investing our time, our thought, and our care and design into the visual aids that support what we're saying. Today you have seen we've embedded a bit of video, we've added some iconography, etc. And it means that I haven't got to keep jumping out to show a video. If you can embed it all, it takes the stress off of you as a presenter. So we're going to turn to Mentimeter now for a couple of questions. So over to Merv, and the first one is going to be, what visual element has stood out for you so far in the presentation today? Is there something that really stood out? The 3 notice boards, excellent. The dodgy internet.
Yeah, I saw that one come in. Apologies, folks.
Text design, brilliant. Power of pictures. Colours is a lot. Yeah, there's one thing that really does bug me. My OCD tends to come out a little bit when you're watching a presentation and you get a complete contrast of colours that don't go together. So we seem to be doing something right, which is good. The second question is, what annoys you about PowerPoint when you're in the audience? So that can be either face-to-face or virtually. So kind of, what's your PowerPoint bugbear?
Yeah, we've allowed two options on this one.
Okay.
And it's in fact a question I put on LinkedIn as I encourage people to come.
I saw that this morning, yeah, last night.
Responses.
Good idea, Merv.
Yeah. I've no idea whether the results are
blocks of text.
typical.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Irritating colour combinations. Yep, speaker using slide as a script. I have definitely in the past fallen into that trap for sure. And complicate. Right, so this brings me nicely onto our next slide, which is,
there we go,
this. So many of us will have sat in an audience and had slides like this put up, where you don't really know what's being said. It's something that really looks like it should be in a puzzle book more than in a presentation. So, and it's what contributes really to the reputation that I think a lot of the time is undeserving, which is death by PowerPoint. So we're going to look at how we can stop and avoid that PowerPoint hell. So how can we avoid it? I've mentioned about how we can unlock it as a design tool and begin to utilize the creative elements. We like to refer to PowerPoint as kind of our Swiss Army knife. And something that you'll be able to see after today's webinar, if you go to a presentation and then you go to Save As, a lot of people have never looked at all the various different things that you can save PowerPoint as. It could be a video, all sorts of different things. This shows you the various different options that you have for using PowerPoint, not just for presentations, but for creating social videos, things like that. I have got 3 key recommendations for you today to utilize your PowerPoint for your next online presentation. And this is where the term design and deliver came from. So point number 1 is you will have decided upon the tone of your presentation. You might decide that it's going to be light-hearted and informal. It might be an internal presentation. Therefore, you might want to have employee photos that you put within the slides. You might decide that it is more of a professional and a more serious presentation where you need some decision making. I know that Jeremy's going to come on to that a bit later. So once you've decided on the tone, start thinking of your visual language that backs up what you're saying. So one look doesn't necessarily fit all. As you've decided on your content, start to storyboard it and start to think about what images or what you would like to see. Again, going back to the audience-centric piece. Do you need to show a lot of data? Are there lots of charts that you need to show? How are you going to get that across and in an interesting way visually? Can you use an infographic potentially to really help drive that message home? And data, even with data, you can still tell a story. You can still have a beginning, a middle, and end. You just make it, as we gave the examples earlier, relatable to the audience. For example, someone put up about the visual elements as well, about having the dog face on one of the slides. You know, that's just a bit of light-hearted fun to drive home the board point that we were making. There's many clever ways. Push the boundaries, add photography, things like that. And this moves on to as thinking visually instead of verbally. So moving through your storyboards, you're the presenter, not the slides, as we said before. How are you going to visually support it? There are some general guidelines here from research. The first being that for an online presentation, you need up to 3 times more slides than you would do for a face-to-face. Now, the reason being for this is to keep up your momentum. Keep those eyes on the screen and focused on you and the messages that you're trying to say, and not diverting to emails, to phones, as Jeremy mentioned. I've got a number 3 in here again, Jeremy. I've been doing my homework. Well done. If it takes more than 3 seconds to determine the message of your slide, it's too complicated. You need to be able to put it up, and within 3 seconds, the audience knows the message, the general message that you're trying to drive home. And another piece that's really I found most valuable to me was learning about the picture superiority effect. I found it quite surprising to find that if you were told or you read something, after 3 days, magic number 3 is in there again, you are only 10% likely to remember what you were told or read. However, if you add images or diagrams or something visual, that number jumps to 65%. So the proof there, literally a picture paints 1,000 words. So using iconography, using graphics, quite often we're asked to do like an icon library for clients to, you know, whether it's to represent a department or a theme. Think about what you can use in that respect. This is a quote from one of my favorite presentation person, Nancy. Nancy Dewart from the States, and she says, don't worry about slide counts, just make your slides count. So we've given the general rule of thumb of 3 times more slides for online, but just check yourself and see if, does it really count what you're showing? Don't just put slides in there for slides' sake, or potentially if you're trying to make a point and it's too much on one side, move it on to the next. Don't get too hung up on how many slides that you've got. You just want to avoid cramming, and you want to engage, but don't distract. You utilize, or you'll notice on here that we've utilized subtle animation for online. Again, this is helping keeping the viewer engaged and coaxing them on the journey with you, emphasizing the points as you address them. It could be a moving arrow, it could be an icon, some subtly animated text, things like that. Just keep the eyes on the screen. The thing to avoid is video or animation that is too fast-paced, because we've seen sometimes you have bandwidth issues, etc., and it can be too distracting. So just a bit of keep it subtle, but keep it interesting. Increase the interest, but reduce the noise. So something we offer our clients, and we've got a couple of slides here that just show it as an example, is taking a corporate template and just creating slide layouts to help users be able to still do it themselves and still retain that control, but be given choice so that there's consistency and professionalism as they create their PowerPoints. And this is just some examples of the different kinds of layouts that you can create. This is a lovely spread that we did for Hotel Chocolat. And it's actually been a first for me, because although I've worked as part of the presentations team for 5 years, I've never actually been their client. So Jeremy and I have been their client for this, and because it's a particularly high stakes presentation for us, and this is what I would recommend to anybody who has something coming up that, you know, they really want to focus on their performance. Don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's a tidy up, you know, you just want someone to take it and polish it, or whether you need a new template or blow your hair back design. There are people out there to help you. We have experienced it now, haven't we, Jeremy, where even though we've had that help, we're able to make the last minute changes ourselves. We still retain that control. So there is help out there, and it can just help relieve your stress, particularly for a big webinar or a very important online presentation. And the third and final pointer, something that again was alluded to earlier by Merv, is how to surprise your audience. So you can do that via a poll, or you can embed a video, short animated story potentially, or there are so many different plugins with PowerPoint. One that we did the other week for a client was we created a board game with a dice and a board where you move the counters around, just to keep up interaction for some of their internal training they were doing. So different elements that bring the attention back every 5 minutes at the most. So in summary, we have given you 3 ideas, and just the main point to remember is that you are the presenter and not the slides. They're there to really drive home your message. But basically you want your performance to shine. So hopefully that's answered some questions and given you some ideas, and if there's any questions.
Yes, absolutely. So your performance did shine, Emma. Absolutely.
Oh,
so look,
thank you.
So what questions have we got? Perhaps you could just pop it into chat. We're only probably going to have time for one question, but have you got a specific, rather than a comment, have you got a specific question about using PowerPoint in high stakes presentations? So just pop that into chat if you've got one. We've got other questions here and other comments, but they're not directly related to PowerPoint. Okay, well look, let's leave it there, Emma, because there doesn't seem to be one coming in right now. Oh, here we go. No. Yeah. Would you go for capitals or lowercase for text?
It really depends on the message that you're trying to say, because a lot of the time it depends. Capitals can either come across as reinforcing a point, or if you put it in too much, it can sound like you're being a bit shouty. So I think it's good to use it, but use just now and again rather in full sentences. That would be my advice.
Great.
There are some other questions there about plugins, etc. I will answer those and be able to send a list through of those in the follow-ups, rather than keep everybody here today too long.
Great. So look, we've covered 2 key elements now, and I think there's one that you're probably waiting for, which is how to be a high energy, passionate speaker.
Possibly
so look,
the most important, Jeremy.
Well, possibly, Emma. Well, the audience will be the judge of that. So look, when I teach or coach managers or leaders, some of them will say to me, the issue I've got, Jeremy, is that my subject matter is dry. Now, my response to that is, it's a cop-out. So if you're bored, the audience will be bored. So let's just think about this for a second. The first thing to say is, it's a performance. Now, look, a presentation is about when the focus is on you, when you're talking about a specific subject that you've got information about that you want to share. You might do it in 5 different ways. So it could be about persuasion. It could be about pitching possibly, or getting buy-in to an internal idea. You could just be informing. That's about briefing, updates, and so forth. You could be instructing. That's, of course, training. It's demonstrating. It's teaching. It could be arousing. That's possibly problem solution, motivational presentations, changing mindsets. And it could be decision making. It could be about deciding on promotions, or who we're going to recruit, or agreeing budgets. And of course, you could have something like a virtual town hall where you could be doing all 5 of those different things. So we just want to get a sense of what you're doing now. We know around about 70% of you are delivering virtual presentations. What sort of virtual presentations are you delivering? So you should jump onto menti.com and just give us, this is a scale question, obviously. So give us a sense of those 5, which ones are you typically doing right now? So so you're now, lots of you are flying in there and telling me what's going on. It looks like most of you are not doing deciding ones. The first 4 are the ones that you're mostly doing. So it's about persuasion, informing. You've got to be careful about informing. You know, I always say to people, do you actually need to make this a PowerPoint presentation or presentation? Can't you just send them information? We do too much informing, in my view. But there's still a lot of persuading and instructing. So some of you might be out there training people or getting people on side. Of course, some of you will be in sales, so you'll be pitching ideas or products. So that's great. So we've got a sense of that now. So look, going back to the slide, whether you do any of these, you've got to be a bigger version of yourself. So you've got to be high energy, because this is a performance. So of course, there's going to be some potential fear around this. I mean, the fear of presenting is number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in any poll about our residual fears over the last 20 years or so. So the question is, what can we do about this? Because we've got to be in a resourceful state. It's very, very critical. A state is a combination of our thoughts, our emotions, and our physiology. And if we're not confident, the audience won't be confident. So we've got to be confident, calm. My beautiful wife, Susie, thinks I sometimes can be a bit of a game show host. So maybe I'm a little bit too high energy sometimes. But you know, we've got to be getting into the state in which we can arouse, persuade, or inform. So those of you who have issues around fear, some of you will have that. Let's just have a look at this. Think about whether your fear of presenting or your nerves or anxiety is the same or different to or reduced from normal face-to-face presenting. So the question there, or the statement there, is virtual presenting makes me more nervous than face-to-face presenting. Is that true or not? Do you strongly disagree or strongly agree? Where are you on that? Let's have a look at what I've come up with. Because of course some of you won't be feeling nervous or anxious at all, which is great. Some of you will do. And it's about, some of you strongly agree with that, and some of you strongly disagree with it. Actually, that's quite interesting, isn't it? And and some are just the same. So that's right across the board, really. So some of you will have residual fears, and you know, we've got whatever it is, 179 people on the webinar today. So for some people, that could be a number. I once worked with someone who said, I said to her, you know, she sometimes got a bit fearful. I said, what's the number? She said, 69. I said, so it's okay if it's 68, but when it's 69, yeah, 69 makes me fearful. So look, if you're one of these people who gets over anxious or nervous, there's 3 key things I want to give you. The first of all, you need to breathe well. So just before I came on, I spent 5 minutes just breathing properly, breathing diaphragmatically. I used the Hawaiian method, the 7-7-7. So breathing in for 7, holding for 7, out for 7. You do that for 5 minutes, you'll be centered and grounded. The second thing you can do, and this is not widely known actually, is look up rather than look down. A lot of people look down at their notes or their slides just before they're coming on. So I'm sort of, doing this now. And what happens is you can go into your feelings or start talking to yourself, and the imposter syndrome suddenly potentially comes up, or your fear or anxiety grows. Don't do that. In simple terms, you need to access your visual cortex. So if you're right-handed, look up right. If you're left-handed, look up left. And that will just allow you to be calmer and also start thinking about how you're going to come across as a presenter. The final one is Amy Cuddy. Some of you will come across Amy Cuddy. And she's wonderful, I think. And I've been a big aficionado of Amy Cuddy ever since I saw her on TED Talks. So she's come up with this idea of power poses. She's interested in the power dynamics in animals and humans. And what she basically says is, if you hold a pose, there are 5 different poses. This pose that we've got here, the Superwoman pose, if you hold that pose for 2 minutes or more, and she's done saliva checks on this sort of thing, it will increase testosterone and decrease cortisol, which is perfect. So just spend 2 minutes getting into an Amy Cuddy power pose, and you'll feel strong and able to deliver. So that's some stuff about making sure that you're in a resourceful state, because it's a performance. The second thing is authenticity. Now, we could get into a long debate, but we've got 4 minutes to go. So 2 coaches who I've worked in during lockdown said to me, look, Jeremy, happy to work with you, but please don't turn me into a professional presenter. And believe me, it's the last thing I would want to do. So you've got to be authentic. We talk about that a lot. It comes from the Greek authentikos, which means genuine, honest. And of course, we could get a debate of what is authentic, what does it really mean? I'm interested in this idea of, a lot of people say to me, I'm introverted and therefore I can't present well. And I'm not, if I do anything that gets me out of that trap, then I won't be myself. But actually, great presenters often are introverted. When I was working at the Moller Group, the chairman there, Des Woods, was one of the very best pitchers and closers and presenters, and he was very, very introverted. Barack Obama is an introvert, but one of the greatest communicators. So it's nothing about personality profile. And the third thing you've got to focus on is your voice. Now, we haven't got time to go into lots of stuff on voice. We've got a couple of minutes or so. The impact of body language is reduced on virtual presenting. So we've got to focus on things like eye contact, looking into the lens, but you can focus on your voice. And I want to give you a simple metaphor here. Most of you in the last few months have probably not flown, but I suspect 99% of you on the webinar today will have flown at some point. So when you fly, when you get into the plane, often the first person you'll hear is the captain. 90% of captains are male for some reason or another, and the captain will say something like this: "Good morning, everyone. My name is Captain Cassell. We're going to be pushing back in approximately 30 minutes. But just for the moment, sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight." And at some point later on, you hear from someone from the cabin crew, and they'll say something like this: "We're going to be coming amongst you very, very shortly. If there's anything you need to, feel free to press the button, and we'll come and serve you. Have a great trip." Now, have you noticed there's any difference in the voice there? We've only got 2 minutes to go or so, but I suspect you might have noticed some differences. In summary, if you want to be the credible captain, speak slower, use pauses, be fairly monotone, and go down at the end of the sentence or phrase. If you want to be more of the cabin crew, if you want to be a connector, if you want to build rapport with people, then do the exact opposite. Much faster, lots of variety, no pauses, and up at the end of the sentence or phrase, and you'll come across as really friendly. Use the credible at the start and at the end, and use it when you're telling people specific bits of evidence. Use the connection voice pattern when you are telling stories, humor, answering questions. So that's a little bit about the voice. So we're pretty much going to wrap up now. We've got just a couple of minutes to wrap up. So we've given you 4 key things. We focused on how to create the right content. We focused on adding interaction through Mentimeter. We focused on vibrant visuals and with Emma's wonderful presentation. And we've just spent a little bit of time about how to be a passionate speaker. So our final Mentimeter question is this: what will you do differently as a result of attending? So just complete that final question, and then I'm going to wrap up, and you'll be away to the next call or lunch in just a second. So what will you actually do differently as a result of attending this webinar? Use the power of 3, use vibrant colors, tell a story.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Great. So it looks like you've got some stuff. That's brilliant. So look, that's really, really important, which I'll come on to right at the end there. So look, in simple terms, if there might be some of you who are interested in our services later on after this session. So if that's the case, you won't be surprised that we offer coaching and training. That's what I do. We offer visual support. That's obviously what Emma does. And of course, Merv the Swerve, the Menti Ninja, focuses on technology. So he can help you with any questions around Mentimeter. So look, we've got a specific offer for those of you who are here today. For those of you who are either as individuals or organizations, if you want us to help you or you want to have a conversation with us, we will happily book in half an hour, completely complimentary, in the next 2 weeks to find out what you want, what your pain points are, and how you think we can support you. If you want to do that, all the details will be in the follow-up email that will come out very, very shortly after the end of this webinar. So please do take advantage of that if these ideas have grabbed you. So final point for me is this. The first line of a book I wrote with Tom Bird about, I think, 7 years ago was this: business training doesn't work. A fairly controversial start to a book. I think you'll agree. It only works if people take action. And the great thing is, a lot of you have written specific actions you're going to take as a result of being with us today. So our invitation to you is get on with it, deliver fantastic virtual presentations. And remember, virtual presenters are made, not born. Thank you so much for joining us today.